Channel. Today we are going to see adaptations of cellular growth and differentiation. So what are these? These are the reversible changes. So this takes place whenever the cell is in the stress. So in response to the stress is tried to adapt, that is nothing but adaptation, that is for the survival. So it is a reversible growth and maybe in the size, number or phenotype or in the metabolic activity of the cell. So this is nothing but responding to the environment. So these adaptations are of many types. Let us learn about. First one is a hypertrophy. Hyper means more. Trophy means increase in size of the cell. So let us understand this. It's increase in size of cell, which also in turn leads to increase in the size of an organ. Of course, if the size of the cell increases, then the size of the organ also increases. So here there are no new cells, any new cells involved in this. Just the size is increased and leading to the larger cells. So this is mainly due to synthesis of more structural components. You can guess especially because of more proteins. So the cell is capable of division. This takes place only in the cells which are capable of division, because you know in non-dividing cell, this takes place mainly in the cells which does not have the capable of division, because they can't divide. As they can't divide, they just increase in size. Example, you can take skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, where these cells can't increase in number, but they can increase in size. So this takes place mainly in the non-dividing cells. So cell capable of division may respond to stress by undergoing both hyperplasia and also hypertrophy. So what is hyperplasia? Hyperplasia means hyper, increase, plasia means proliferation. So increase in the number of cells is nothing but hyperplasia. So hyperplasia and hypertrophy both can take place in cells capable of division. Those both can take place, but whereas in non-dividing cells, especially the special feature is hypertrophy, that is increase in the size of the cells. Example, you can take myocardial fibers. So here there is mainly hypertrophy. So in many organs, the hypertrophy and hyperplasia may coexist and contribute to the increased size. So here you can take the example of female reproductive organ during menstruation cycles or during puberty. You can see there is also hypertrophy and also hyperplasia. So hypertrophy is a physiological and pathological, that is it takes place normally and also pathological, during diseases. So first let us understand during physiological, that is the normal process. So what happens in normal process? It mainly takes place in tissues where it is having increased functional demand or by stimulation by hormones and growth factors. So it is mainly stimulated by growth factors and hormones which lead to this increase in size. So normal example, we can take someone doing exercise, more exercise, like example you can take bodybuilders. It's a physiological process. So because of more exercise they get the muscles. So this is because of hypertrophy. This is a normal process. And remember one thing, any cell have only a limited capacity for the hypertrophy, that is only to a limited size they can increase in the size, but they can't increase more than the metabolic demands, mainly by undergoing hypertrophy. So the most common stimulus for the hypertrophy of a muscle is increased workload. Here you can take this example as bodybuilders. This is because of mainly pumping of iron, increase in size of individual's muscle. And next, in heart, the stimulus for hypertrophy is usually the chronic hemodynamic overload. So sometimes the heart also undergo hypertrophy, because heart can't divide. It doesn't have hyperplasia, but it has only hypertrophy. So this takes place when there is more hypertension. So because of this hypertension, mainly the left ventricle damages, because when there is hypertension, the blood vessels are blocked and this leads to more pressure on the left ventricle. So the left ventricle muscles undergo hypertrophy, and this also leads to the faulty valves. Mitral valve. As we are talking about left ventricle, mitral valve. If it is of right ventricle, then of course you can take there as tricuspid valve. And next, coming to these all things, what happens? Finally, this synthesize more proteins and increase in the number of myofilaments, and this increases the amount of force myocyte can generate, and thus increases strength and work capacity of a muscle as a whole. So the physiological growth of uterus during pregnancy is a very good example of hormone-induced increase in the muscle mass. So this one you can take an example, that is uterus during pregnancy, and also the size of the organ is increased in pregnancy. And from hypertrophy of the muscle fibers, a cellular enlargement is stimulated by estrogen hormones acting on a smooth muscle. So whenever the estrogen is increased, the estrogen receptors know that and increase the synthesis of smooth muscle proteins, so thereby increasing the size of the cell. So adults' tissues are incapable of proliferation, and therefore their enlargement is entirely as a result of hypertrophy. So now accumulating evidence has been also seen some cell types which are capable of some proliferation as well, and also repopulation from precursors. So as we said, some cells like cardiac cells which only go hypertrophic, so nowadays they have found that they are also undergoing hyperplasia. So now let us understand the mechanism of the hypertrophy. So it is nothing but increase in the cellular proteins. So how these are increased? Because of the because this is induced by growth factors, TGF beta insulin like growth factors like IG1 insulin like growth factors, fibroblast growth factors, vasoactive agents, alpha adrenergic agonist, and also you can take endothelin 1 angiotensin 2. So all these growth factors induce the growth and thereby increase in the cellular proteins. So we also have alpha adrenergic agostins and agonist endothelin 1. So all this. So this increases synthesis of the muscle proteins and responsible for the hypertrophy. So the two main biochemical pathways which is leading in the muscle hypertrophy is phosphoinositide 3 kinase or AKT pathway, and also we can take exercise induced hypertrophy is a most important physiological process, and signaling down the G protein. You know there are G proteins inside the cells, so G protein receptors take this, and it is induced by the growth factors, vasoactive agents, and it is also important in pathological hypertrophy. So hypertrophy may also be associated with a switch of contractile proteins from adult to fetal or neonatal forms. So sometimes the adult proteins are converted into neonatal forms also. For example, here you can take during muscle hypertrophy, the alpha isoform of myosin heavy chain is replaced by the beta isoform. Beta isoform is of fetal, but sometimes in adults also the fetal isoforms are formed because of hypertrophy. So which has a slower, more energetically economical contraction. In addition, you can take some genes which are expressed only during early development, and they are de-expressed in the hypertrophic cells too. So these are the examples. And next you have one more example for the gene of atrial natriuretic factor, ANF. It is expressed mainly in the atrium and the ventricle, especially in the embryonic heart, but not in the adults. But it is downregulated after the birth. But in cardiac hypertrophy, you can find that it is also associated with the reinduction. That is, again, this ANF gene is expressed, and the peptide, it is actually a peptide hormone and causes the salt secretion by the kidneys, so thereby decreasing the blood volume. As you know, blood volume is decreased. It is nothing but decrease in the hemodynamic load. So there is also some limit beyond the enlargement of muscle mom. It is no longer able to compensate for the increased burden. So then there is a chance of apoptosis, that is cell death. So if if a cell can't undergo more increase in size, so there is some limit. If that limit crosses, then it undergoes apoptosis. And next you can see how an adaptation to stress can progress to functionally significant cell injury if the stress is not relieved, as we understood just now. So sometimes a subcellular organ may also undergo the selective hypertrophy, and individuals treated with drugs like barbiturates show the hypertrophy. This is one more example of smooth endoplasmic reticulum in the hepatocyte, that is in the liver. So which is an adaptive response, increases the amount of enzymes, especially the cytochrome P450 and mixed function oxidase. So this is available to detoxify the drugs. So over time the patients respond less to the drug because of these adaptations. So whenever we give barbiturates to the patient, they just don't respond to this because of this adaptation. So adaptation to one drug may also result in increased capacity to metabolize the other drugs. So for example, you can take alcohol intake causes a hypertrophy of smooth endoplasmic reticulum and may lead to the reduced levels of available barbiturates, so that are being taken at the same time. So although P450 mediated modification is often tough of a detoxification, many compounds are rendered more injurious by this process. So in addition, the products formed by this oxidative metabolism include the reactive oxygen species and also can injure the cell. So you can take the normal genetic variations like polymorphisms influence the activity of P450 and thus sensitive of different individuals to the various drugs. So this is an example of alcohol intake which is causing this. And now let us understand hyperplasia. Hyper means increase, plasia means proliferation. So increase in proliferation of cells, that is increase in number of cells, also increases the mass of the organ. So this is mainly because sometimes the hyperplasia and hypertrophy, the both may occur together, and this is also triggered sometimes by hypertrophic agents like those growth factors itself. So even those external stimulus may be similar, and they are capable of dividing cells. So only in the capable of dividing cells only this hyperplasia takes place, because in non-dividing cells mostly hypertrophy takes place, and also remember in non-dividing cells even hyperplasia may take place. So thus increasing the number of cells, and hyperplasia can be physiological or pathological. So let us understand physiological, that is a normal process. So in normal process there are mainly two steps, that is a hormonal hyperplasia, that is induced, of course you can understand hormonal hyperplasia means it is induced due to hormones, and compensatory hyperplasia, this is an example here where you can see about liver. So first let us understand hormonal hyperplasia. In this mainly it is because of proliferation of glandular epithelium of the female breast at puberty. So you can see the glandular epithelium growing more in a puberty in a female breast, and also during pregnancy. So this is accompanied by the enlargement. This is the hypertrophy of the glandular epithelial cells. And next coming to the compensatory hyperplasia. For this you can take example of liver. Whenever the liver is cut, it again can regenerate. So here we have a story of Greek from Prometheus. So what did Prometheus, he actually stole, he has the capacity to liver to generate. The punishment was given that he has stolen the secret of fire from the gods. So he was chained to a mountain, and daily night the eagle used to come and eat his liver, and the next day night when they observed, they saw that his liver was regenerated. Then this is known as compensatory hyperplasia. So this was a Greek example from that story. And next you can see the pathological hyperplasia. So when this takes place, let us understand. So pathological hyperplasia is caused by excess of hormones or growth factors. Normally if they act normally, then hyperplasia takes place. But if there are excess, then there is continuously triggering the cell, then it undergoes, of course, abnormal way. So if there is abnormal induced hyperplasia after the menstrual period, there is rapid burst of the proliferative activity. Normally in the menstrual cycle it is mainly regulated by progesterone, estrogen, and also some luteinizing hormones, follicular stimulating etc. But sometimes what happens, because of some increase in estrogen or some abnormalities in the levels of hormones, what happens, sometimes there is excessive bleeding in females. This is because of this pathological hyperplasia, because there is more proliferation of the cells and leading to more bleeding in the females. And there is also benign prostatic hyperplasia. This takes place in male, that is in the prostatic gland. This is because of mainly increased androgen stimulation in the male. And next coming to the process remains controlled because there are no mutations, but you should not mistaken this with the neoplasia, because hyperplasia is not neoplasia, but there are chances that hyperplasia may change into neoplasia. So this is very important point. Here you can see sometimes the hyperplasia is distinct from cancer, but the pathological hyperplasia constitutes a fertile soil in which a cancer proliferation cell may eventually arise. So for instance, patients with hyperplasia of endometrium are at high risk for developing an endometrial cancer. So this we need to remember. And hyperplasia is a characteristic response to certain viral infections too. Sometimes this takes place because of viral infections like papilloma virus, which cause skin warts, and also several mucosal lesions composed of mass of hyperplasic epithelium. So here the growth factors produced by the viral genes, this infect the cell for the overproliferation. So what is the mechanism of hyperplasia? There are mainly two mechanisms, that is mainly result of growth factor driven proliferation and from the tissue stem cells. So here to understand this, we'll understand the example. So result of growth factor driven proliferation. Growth factor induces it. So whenever the growth factor induces it, you can take example of a liver only for this both. For example, if liver has undergone regeneration, that is if the liver has cut. If the liver is cut, it can again grow. This is because of the cut part of the liver sends some signals to the already present liver, so that these receptors induce the stimulation and liver again regenerates. This is because of result of growth factor driven proliferation. And from the stem cells, so whenever we do hepatectomy, that is liver surgery, then you can see whenever we cut the liver, what happens, the stem cells again come and it can form a new liver. So then this is known as from the stem cells, and this is known as from growth factors. So here you can understand this mechanism. And coming to atrophy, you can see atrophy. A means absent, trophy means absence of cell growth, that is decrease in the size of the growth. So when this takes place, decrease in size of organ resulting from decrease in cell size and number. This is also physiological and pathological. So physiological is you can take during normal development, during some embryonic structures. Now you can see notochord and some thyroglossal duct, all those things now they are not present in us. This is atrophy, they are reduced. So this is normal physiological atrophy. But what is pathological atrophy? That is underlying cause, local or generalized. So there are some of the causes here. First, this is decreased workload. Sometimes disuse. This is also known as atrophy of disuse. Sometimes we don't work a lot. Some in bedridden patients, you can see they don't always mobilize their legs or like that. Because of this, their size of the organs decreases, especially skeletal muscle atrophy rapidly ensues, and initial decrease in the cell size is reversible. It is reversible only for some time if that person is not walking, or if it is only sometime bed rest. But if it is more prolonged, that is for more time, then it may also lead to severe causes, that is due to apoptosis, and atrophy can be accompanied by increased bone resorption and leading to osteoporosis of the disuse. So loss of innervation. This is known as denervation atrophy. That is, sometimes the normal metabolism and function of the skeletal muscle are dependent on its nerve supply. So damage to these nerves lead to the atrophy of the muscle fibers supplied by those nerves. So if the nerves are damaged, then all that muscles may also damage. That is loss of innervation. And next, diminished blood supply. Diminished blood supply, of course, it is ischemia. So whenever the blood supply is decreased, then the in the atria there are occlusive diseases and atrophy. And in adult life, the brain may undergo progressive atrophy. This is also known as special name senile atrophy. You can see this is senile atrophy. This is adult brain. This is younger brain. So in adult brain, how this has formed? That is, these are constricted. You can see that. And next, coming to inadequate nutrition, that is, in marasmus where there are low nutrition, low supply of energy. So because of this, it leads to cachexia. Cachexia is marked muscle wasting. Then it is known as cachexia. So this is seen in the patients with chronic inflammatory diseases and also in cancers. So this is overproduction of inflammatory cytokine, tumor necrosis phenomenon is tough to be responsible for appetite suppression and lipid depletion and culminating in the muscle atrophy. So this is tumor necrosis factor is the one which is decreasing the appetite. So that was nothing but nutrition deficiency. So the patient is causing marasmus. So this is also nothing but atrophy, inadequate nutrition atrophy. And next, coming to loss of endocrine stimulation. Sometimes the hormone response to dishes like breast, reproductive organs depend on endocrine stimulation. Of course, we know. So for normal metabolism, so loss of this estrogen stimulation, menopause is a physiological atrophy at endometrium, vaginal epithelium, breast. And not only this, from our endocrine system there are many hormones. So sometimes adrenal gland, all those also may undergo atrophy if those hormones are not reaching them. And next, coming to pressure. Sometimes in tumors, what they do, as they are growing more, they compress the nearby tissues so that they undergo atrophy, because these are growing more. For example, this is tumor, I am growing more like this, and here nearby tissues, as I am growing, they are compressing them. So all those will undergo atrophy. So this is what they say. So you can see the main point, new equilibrium is early in the process. The atrophy cells may be diminished function, but they are not dead. So this is important. They are diminished in size, but they are not dead. But they may also undergo death if there is more prolonged time. And it's coming to mechanism. So there are two mechanisms, that is decreased protein synthesis and increased protein degradation. Of course, that is nothing but both same. And also ubiquitin. There is also ubiquitin proteasome pathway, which is leading to this, that is a nutrient deficiency and disuse may activate the ubiquitin ligases. These attach to a small peptide known as ubiquitin to the cellular proteins, and they target the proteins for degradation in proteasomes. So like this, the proteins are decreased and leading to atrophy. So this is responsible for accelerated proteolysis seen in a variety of catabolic conditions and including cancer and also cachexia. If you remember cachexia as we discussed earlier. And next, coming to in many situations, cachexia means decrease in nutrition as we discussed, and atrophy is accompanied by increased autophagy. That is, autophagy means self-eating. Increase in the number of autophagic values, that is, self-eating is a process. Starved cells eat in own components. So whenever you do long-term starving, our cells try to eat them and That is nothing but atrophy again, that is decreased size of organ and also decrease in number of cells. So the nutrients and survival. So autophagic vacuoles are membrane bound. These contain fragments of cell components, and this vacuole ultimately fuse with the lysosomes. You know, lysosomes are eating cells, so their contents are digested by lysosomes. So some of the cell debris with autophagic vacuoles may resist digestion and persist in membrane bound residual bodies. So they may remain as a sarcophagus in the cytoplasm. An example of such residual bodies, you can take lipofuscin granules. So when present in sufficient amounts, they impart a brown discoloration of the disease known as brown atrophy. So remember, lipofuscin granules gives a brown atrophy, and the autophagy is associated with the various types of cell injury we will discuss. Okay. And next coming to metaplasia. So what is metaplasia? Metaplasia is a change in the tissue that is not completely changed but replacement. We can say correct word is replacement. This is also an reversible change. It differentiated. For example, you can take columnar cell is differentiated to squamous cell. This you can see in mainly cigarette smoking. That is for long time cigarette smoking people. So there the normal ciliated columnar epithelium of the trachea is changed into stratified squamous epithelium. That is, as they are smoking for the more time, this is an adaptation to save them. If they smoke more, we can't help them. So next, stones in the excretory ducts of salivary glands and also in pancreas, bile ducts. So all this causes the replacement of normal secretory epithelium by stratified squamous epithelium. And also there is deficiency of vitamin A induces the squamous metaplasia in the respiratory epithelium, and also instances more drug stratified epithelium is able to survive, and more fragile specialized columnar epithelium might have succumbed. So change to metabolic squamous cells comes with a price. That is, it is not so easy. It also has some defect. So what is that defect? In the respiratory tract, for example, all the epithelial lining becomes tough, important mechanism for protection, but the mucus secretions and the ciliary action of the columnar epithelium, these are lost. So this is like a double-edged sword. That is, it's also having advantages and disadvantages. So what is the disadvantage? Their normal function like mucus secretion, all these are lost. And one more thing, you can see persistent may intimate malignant transformation in the metaplastic epithelium, as we said before. So the common form of cancer in the respiratory tract is composed of squamous cells which arise in the areas of metaplasia of normal columnar epithelium into squamous epithelium. So we can see more cancers, those all things in the squamous epithelium because of this change, metaplasia. So if you remember metaplasia, not only metaplasia, before we discuss hyperplasia also. So hyperplasia and metaplasia both may also lead to cancer. And metaplasia from squamous to columnar type may also occur in the Barrett esophagus. This is very important. So what is Barrett esophagus? Actually, when this acidic juice from the stomach reverse peristalsis, that is, it comes to our esophagus or near to mouth, that is in acidic people. So what happens as when in acidity people, if it comes more time, then the squamous is converted into columnar type. So this is replaced by intestinal like columnar cells. So influence of reflux gastric acid. So cancers may arise in these areas too. These are typically glandular, and of course glandular means adenocarcinomas. So connective tissue metaplasia is a formation of cartilage, bone or adipose. Sometimes the bone or adipose tissue may also form in the tissues, and they normally do not contain these elements. For example, you can take bone formation in the muscle, so very rare and designated. This is known as myositis ossificans, and the occasionally occurs after intramuscular hemorrhages. So this type of metaplasia is less clearly seen as an adaptive response and may be a result of a cell or tissue injury, of course. And it's coming to the mechanisms of metaplasia. So how these changes are taking place? Actually, it is a phenotype of an already differentiated cell type. Instead, it is a result of a reprogramming of stem cells that are known to exist in the normal tissues or of undifferentiated mesenchymal cells present in the connective tissue. So in a metaplastic change, these precursor cells differentiate along a new pathway, of course. So the differentiation of stem cells to a particular lineage is brought by the signals generated by mainly cytokines, growth factors, and also extracellular matrix components in the cell environment. So these external stimuli promote the expression of the genes that drive the cell towards a specific differentiation pathway. So in the case of vitamin A deficiency or excess, it is known as retinoic acid regulate gene transcription directly through the nuclear retinoid receptors, so which can influence the differentiation of progenitors derived from the tissue stem cells. So how other external stimuli cause metaplasia is still unknown, but it is clear that they too somehow alter the activity of transcription factors that regulate differentiation. So this is all about adaptations of cell. So whenever these adaptations fail, of course cell goes to death. So this is all about adaptations pathology, cellular adaptations.